A pleasant day to Miss Chandra Paidumama, our beloved professor. My name is Christine Medianista. At this point, we will going to present the socio-emotional development theory. Socio-emotional development refers to the growth and development of a person's social and emotional skills and abilities. It involves understanding and managing one's own emotions, forming positive relationships with others, and developing empathy and social awareness. During socio-emotional phase to children development is very important aspect of our lives as growing up as an individuals to recognize and express their own emotions as well as understanding and response to the emotions of others. They also develop skills in building and maintaining relationships such as effective communication, conflict resolution, and cooperations. It is important to support the nurture socio-emotional development in child's well-being as it contributes to their overall happiness and success in life. To go further at this topic, in 1960s, Diana Blumberg Baumrind, a psychologist who dedicated her life to understand the effect of parenting, and conducted a study to more than 100 preschool-aged children using naturalistic observations, parental interview, and other research methods. She identified some important dimensions of parenting styles. So we have the disciplinary, how the parents teach us, how the parents discipline us in a way na makakabuti para sa atin. And then warmth, since very then, when we're still baby, our parents give us so much care and love and nurturing. We need um, we need their guidance, their support, and love. And of course, the communication styles, how they practiced us, how to communicate others around us, and of course, expectation of maturity and control to ourselves. Let's talk first about authoritative parenting, the high demandingness, high responsiveness, caregiving style. Authoritative parenting is a parenting style that is characterized by a balance between warmth, responsiveness, and setting clear expectations and boundaries for children. For example, in one household, the parents nurturing child with a healthy environment. For instance, when the child faces disagreement with their peers around, the parents never invalidate their feelings. It listens to them, sit beside its child, and encourage to express child's feeling and find a solution together. If the child made mistake, parents discipline them in a nice way to become more extra careful next time. Now, it feels like being heard and respected. Fostering strong bond between parents and its children. Authoritative parenting provides structure, support, guidance to children, development toward independency while growing up. And also we have the permissive parenting, the low demandingness and high responsiveness caregiving style. Permissive parenting style is a parenting where parents have very few demands or expectations to their children and tend to be more lenient and indulgent. They often avoid setting clear boundaries and rules and may have more relaxed approach to this discipline. In permissive parenting, parents may prioritize their child's happiness and satisfaction, in short term over teaching them important life skills and values. They may avoid using punishments or consequences for misbehavior and instead rely on reasoning and negotiation with their child. For example, in the household filled of love but rules and boundaries are scarce in the family. Allowing children to do what they want, to do what they please without proper guidance and structure. Kahit anong gusto nila sa buhay, kahit anong gusto ng mga bata ibibigay, pinapayagan sa lahat ng gusto, unlimited freedom. Children may lead into spoiled brat that affect on its own behavior and the result of struggling and controlling their emotions and even can't make decisions, struggles in authority figure, and find it challenging to set and achieve goals in life. The next is we have the authoritarian parenting, the high demandingness and low responsiveness caregiving style. Authoritarian parenting is a parenting style characterized by strict rules and high expectation, like little no flexibility. In these parenting styles, parents tend to have a strong desire for control and obedience from their children. They often use punishment and discipline as a means of maintaining control over their children's behavior. Imagine in one household that the parents expect the obedience from the children without having a room for flexibility and mistakes. Children can pursue their own passion and desire, but more often to focus on parents' choices and preferences. The authoritarian parenting, while seeking obedience and discipline, often sacrifices the child's autonomy and stifles their individuality. In the future, children who raised with structure of authoritarian caregiving style may struggle of making decisions, lack of confidence of themselves, and fearful to make steps in life. The last one is we have negligent parenting, the low demandingness and the low responsiveness caregiving style. Negligent parenting, also known as uninvolved parenting or neglectful parenting, is a parenting style characterized by a lack of emotional involvement, supervision, and support. Parents who exhibit this style tend to be disengaged and unresponsiveness to children's needs. For example, in the series of both professional parents who were too busy for everyday work and children left for themselves, lacking of guidance and emotional support and improper communication. For instance, when the children gain access from school and participate in activities but feel no one has been there to cheer up them and be proud of their accomplishments, then they will lose motivation and leave unnoticed. Children have become incompetent socially and have no confidence in themselves. Understanding these parenting styles empowers us to make informed choices and create nurturing environments the best suits to our children's needs according to time and situation. Who are we today is the reflection of how parents molded and foster our young minds. Once again, I am Christine Medianista. And that should be all. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Today, I'm going to discuss the attachment theory by John Bowlby. So, before I start my discussion, let's have some brief background about John Bowlby. So, John Bowlby was born on February 26, 1907, in London. He died on September 2, 1990, in Scotland, with an age of 83. So, John Bowlby is a British, and his field of study is psychiatry. So, John Bowlby coined the term attachment. John Bowlby described that attachment as a lasting psychological connection between human beings. So, bakit nga ba nasabi ni John Bowlby na ang attachment ay isang lasting psychological connection between human being? So, nasabi niya yon because it maintained the connection between the infant and the caregiver, and until he or she grows up. According to Bowlby, attachment also serves to help the infant close to the mother, thus improving the child's chance of survival. So, with the help of attachment, natututong mag-demand ang child or ang infant sa kanyang caregiver. And ang caregiver naman ay because of the attachment, natututo siyang mag-respond sa demand ng isang infant or ng kanyang inaalagaan. Attachment is a strong affectionate tie we have with special people in our lives that lead us to experience pleasure when we interact with them and to be comforted by names in times of stress. That is according to Laura Burke. So, in times of stress or in times of malungkot tayo, dahil sa attachment natin sa isang tao, nako-comfort nila tayo or napapasaya nila tayo kapag sila nandyan sa tabi natin. Bowlby's ethological theory of attachment recognizes infants' emotional tie to the caregiver as an evolved response that promotes survival. Phases of attachment development. Babies are equipped with behavior like crying, cooing, babbling, and smiling to ensure adult attention, and adults are biologically programmed to respond to infant signal. He view the first 3 years are very sensitive period of attachment. According to John Bowlby, there are four phases of attachment. Bowlby's four stages of attachment. Number one is pre-attachment, newborn to 6 weeks. So the first stage of attachment is from birth to 6 weeks. There is no attachment to any specific individual at this time. The infant does not show any preferences for adults and will not fuss when being picked up by strangers. During this period, ang baby, when a stranger pick him up, so walang attachment na magaganap or walang attachment na mabubuo sa bata dahil napaka-sensitive pa lang ng bata during this time. Only the caregiver, he is only attached. Number two is attachment in making. 6 weeks to 6 to 8 months. In this stage, the infants begin to show preferences for caregivers over strangers. Their primary caregiver, such as the mother, begins to have powerful effect on the infant's behavior. The mother can soothe the baby more easily than others and elicit more frequent and sustained smiles because the baby is developing social referencing skills. So, during this stage, ang baby ay nag-uumpisa ng mag-develop ng attachment sa mga taong nasa paligid niya or yung mga taong malalapit sa kanya. Number 3 is clear-cut attachment. 6 to 8 months to 18 to 24 months. As the name suggests, during this stage, there is a clear attachment bond between the infant and the caregiver. The bond can be quite strong. The infant will show strong protest when separated from the caregiver that can include crying loudly and quick bursts of a random physical movements. So during this period, mapapansin natin na may nabuong attachment sa isang bata or may nabuong attachment between the caregiver and the infant is when the caregiver leaves, mag-uumpisang umiyak ang bata or kapag nawala ang caregiver sa paningin ng bata, ay iiyak siya ng iiyak. Number 4 is formation of reciprocal relationships. 24 months plus. As the child's cognitive development progresses, the developmental representations of others. This may lead to the formation of multiple attachment, including secondary caregivers such as the father, relatives, or babysitters. They also develop a fuller understanding of circumstances that influence the caregiver's behavior, which make their world more predictable and less stressful. Style of attachment. Bowlby's theory of attachment showed that infants placed in an unfamiliar situation and separated from their parent will generally in one of the three-way upon reunion with the parent. Researchers also added four different styles of attachment. Four styles of attachment. Number 1 is secure attachment. It's classified by children who show some distress when their caregiver leaves but are able to compose themselves quickly when the caregiver returns. So during this time, ang infant ay may nabuong secure attachment sa kanyang sarili dahil when the caregiver leaves, mapapanatag ang bata or panatag ang bata kahit umalis ang kanyang caregiver. Number 2 is avoidant attachment. It's represented by children who avoid their caregiver, showing no distress when the caregiver leaves. Kung nagkakaroon ng avoidant attachment ang isang bata is kapag ang iyong pag-aalaga sa kanya ay inconsistent or hindi mo inaalagaan ng maayos ang infant. So maybe nagiging abusive ka sa isang bata or sa infant, kaya nagkakaroon siya ng avoidant attachment. Number 3 is ambivalent attachment. It's defined by children who become very distressed when their caregiver leaves and they are not able to soothe or compose themselves. So kapag walang nabuong secure attachment sa isang bata, ay magkakaroon talaga siya ng ambivalent attachment or they cannot soothe or compose themselves kapag ang caregiver ay umalis. Number 4 is disorganized attachment. It's defined by children who have no consistent way to manage their separation from and reunion with the attachment figure. So, sa lahat ng style of attachment, ito yung pinakamalala, no? From the word disorganized. So, maybe ang caregiver ay inconsistent sa kanyang pag-aalaga sa infant, or maybe hindi nagre-response si caregiver sa demand ni infant.
Hello everyone, I'm Anime Pinansilo and I'm about to discuss the Erikson psychosocial theory of development. First, let's have a short information about who is Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson was born on June 15, 1902 as Erich Hamburger Erikson in Frankfurt, Germany. He was a German-American psychologist and a psychoanalyst known for his psychosocial theory of development, which consists of 8 stages that span a person's lifespan. Each stages represent a unique psychosocial crisis that individuals must navigate in order to develop a healthy personality. Now, let's move to Erikson's psychosocial theory of development. But first, let's unlock what is psychosocial and why did Erikson call this a psychosocial theory. Erikson's psychosocial term is derived from the two source words, which namely psychological, or it is from the root word psycho and social. Psycho means it refers to the individual's psychological or the internal development of an individual relating to the mind, to the brain, and the personality of an individual. Social means the external relationship and environment. Erikson emphasized the relationship between society and the individual's psychosocial theory of development. This theory connects personal development and social development. Erik Erikson also believed that people go through 8 stages throughout their life from infancy to old age. Each stages involve a psychosocial crisis of 2 emotional forces. A term used by Erikson for these opposing forces is contrary disposition. Erikson used the word syntonic and dystonic. For the syntonic, it is the first listed positive disposition in each crisis. The example of syntonic is the trust. For the dystonic, it is the second listed negative disposition, and the example of it is the mistrust. To signify the opposing or conflicting relationship between each pair of forces or disposition, Erikson connected them with the word versus. Now, if a stage is managed well, we carry away a certain virtue or psychosocial strength which will help us through the rest of the stages of our lives. On the other hand, if we don't do well, we may develop a maladaptation and also the malignancies, as well as it in danger of our future development. When we say maladaptation, it is not quite as bad and it involves too much of the positive and too little of the negative, such as a person who trusts too much. While the malignancy is the worst of the two, it involves too little of the positive and too much of the negative aspect of the task, such as person who cannot trust others or a person with trust issues. Understanding the theory of Erik Erikson can help us educators successfully advance their students through each stages. Now, let us discuss the 8 stages of Erikson's psychosocial development. Let's begin with the first stage. The first stage, which is the infancy. According to Erikson, this is the most important period of a child's life. It shapes their views of the world as well as their overall personality. It is approximately the first year or year and a half of life. The crisis is the trust versus the mistrust. When a baby's physical and emotional needs such as feeding, comfort, or affection are consistently met by their caregivers, they develop a sense of trust in the world. For example, a baby who is promptly fed when hungry, comforted when upset, and receive affection from their caregivers learn to trust that their needs will be met. They will feel secure and develop a positive outlook on the world. This trust lays the foundation for the healthy social and emotional development. When parents are overly protective of the child, like they are there the minute the first cry came out, may result to the maladaptation of the sensory maladjustment. Sensory maladjustment, this person may become overly trusting, gullible, or this person cannot believe anyone would mean them harm. Example of this is being overly trusting of strangers offering food and object, which could pose a risk of introducing harmful substances or object. Another example is immediate comfort with unfamiliar people. Displaying an unusual level of comfort with strangers without showing signs of caution or distress, potentially exposing the infant to the unsafe situation. It is important for caregivers to encourage balance between social interaction and safety, helping infants develop a healthy sense of trust while being mindful potential risk from unfamiliar individuals. But if caregivers are inconsistent or neglectful in meeting the child's needs, the child may develop mistrust. For example, a baby whose caregiver are often unavailable or unresponsive to their cries may develop mistrust. They may become anxious, have trouble bonding with others, and may grow up with a general sense of suspicion and insecurity. Now, when the child whose balance is tipped way over to the mistrust side may result to the malignancy of withdrawal. This person is characterized by depression, paranoia, and possibly psychosis. The example of this is an infant with excessive or prolonged crying that goes beyond typical infant fussiness. It may be indicate of an unmet need or discomfort of an infant. This could be due to hunger, physical discomfort, or like diaper rash and illness, and etc. This person also believes that others are trying to harm them even when there's no evidence to support this belief. This belief is characteristic of the paranoia, a condition where individuals perceive others as a threat or believe that harm is being plotted against them even in the absence of the concrete evidence. According to Erikson, no child is going to develop a sense of 100% trust or mistrust. Erikson believed that successful development was all about striking a balance between the two opposing sides. When the proper balance of the trust and mistrust is achieved, children will develop hope. The beliefs that when things are not going well, they will work out in the end. They have the confidence in their caregivers and the world around them, which lays the foundation for healthy social and emotional development. That is our first stage, which is the infancy. The psychosocial crisis is trust versus mistrust. The maladaptation is sensory maladjustment, and the malignancy is withdrawal, and the psychosocial strength is hope. Okay, let's proceed to the second stage, which is early childhood, or the autonomy versus shame and doubt. From 18 months or 3 or 4 years of old, the task is to achieve a degree of autonomy while minimizing shame and doubt. If mom and dad permit the child to explore and manipulate his or her environment, the child will develop a sense of autonomy. It is the development of self-confidence and a sense of personal control over one's environment. For example, the child begins to take responsibility for toileting. A child who successfully mastered toilet training and a sense of accomplishment may develop autonomy. That they take pride in their newfound ability to control their body functions. Other important events include gaining more control over food choices, toy preferences, and clothing selections. A little shame and doubt is not only inevitable, but it is beneficial. Without it, a child may develop a sense of impulsiveness. It is a sort of shameless willfulness that leads you to jump into things without proper consideration of their abilities. For example, excessive spending, or a child who is being impulsive purchasing without considering their financial situation or their long-term consequences. On the other hand, if a child is shamed or punished for accident during toilet training, they may develop shame and to doubt. They feel inadequate or uncertain about their own abilities. Too much shame and doubt will result to compulsiveness. This person feel as if their entire being rides on everything they do and everything must be done perfectly. For instance, if a child experiences excessive shame or and criticism for accident, they might develop doubt about their ability to control their bodily functions. This can result to compulsiveness, behaviors related to cleanliness and hygiene, such as frequent hand washing or obsessive toilet routines. Erickson believed that achieving balance between autonomy versus shame and doubt would lead to willpower and determination. Can do in this stage is their motto. They will have confidence in their ability to make choices, set goals, and preserve their efforts. That is our second stage, which is the early childhood. The psychosocial crisis is the autonomy versus shame and doubt. The maladaptation is impulsiveness. The malignancy is compulsiveness. And the psychosocial crisis, psychosocial strength of this stage is willpower and determination. Next is for the stage 3, which is the playing age, the initiative versus guilt. From 3 or 4 to 5, 6 years old, the task is to learn initiative without too much of the guilt. At this point of psychosocial development, children are encouraged to explore and engage in purposeful activities. They develop a sense of initiative by taking on tasks and setting goals, demonstrating curiosity and displaying enthusiasm for learning. Like, for example, children often engage in imaginative play such as pretending to be a characters from their favorite stories like Batman, Spider-Man, or even inventing their own scenarios. Parents should encourage and accept their fantasy, curiosity, and the imagination of the children. If children's efforts are met with criticism, excessive control, or lack of support, they may develop feelings of guilt. This can lead to a sense of inadequacy, fear of punishment, and reluctance to take on new challenges. Let's go back to the example I gave earlier. The child is pretending to be a superhero and accidentally knocks over a stack of books while rescuing a stuffed animal. If they feel responsible for the mess, they might experience guilt because they think they've caused real damages. This can be an opportunity for adults to teach children about taking responsibility for their actions and help them understand the distinction between play and reality. Developing too much of the initiative and too little guilt may result to ruthlessness. A ruthless person is heartless or they don't consider the feelings of others. Like, for instance, a child who wants a particular toy from a friend may use aggressive tactics such as grabbing the toy without asking, without considering the feelings or the rights of the other child. Now, when a person develops too much of the guilt, may result to the inhibition. Inhibition, where a person becomes overly hesitant. They are so afraid to take action because they are afraid that if it fails, they will be blamed. The major theme of the third stage of psychosocial development is that children need to begin asserting control and power over the environment. Success in this stage leads to a sense of courage. Courage involves taking action despite a clear awareness of one's limitations and past failures. Example, a child playing at the park pretending to be a superhero. One of his friends seek for a help, then he shows courage by helping an injured child despite of his understanding of his limitation. That is our third stage, which is the play age. The psychosocial crisis of is initiative versus guilt. The maladaptation is ruthlessness, and the malignancy is inhibition, and the psychosocial strength is courage. Next is the stage 4, which is the school age or the industry versus the inferiority. The child is from about 6 to 12 years old. The task is to develop a capacity for industry while avoiding an excessive sense of inferiority. Industry refers to purposeful or meaningful activity. It is the development of competence and achievements. Through social interaction, parents must encourage and the teacher must care and the peer must accept. The children must learn the feelings of success, whether it is in school or it is in the playground and even in academic. Children needs to cope with new social and academic demands. Success to this will lead to a sense of competence. On the other hand, if the child is allowed too little of the success because of the harsh teacher or the rejecting peers, then the child will develop a sense of inferiority or the incompetence. Inferior person feel useless or a sense of inadequacy and a self-doubt. Example is a child who excelled in school, always receive positive feedback from teacher, from peers, and complete tasks with a sense of accomplishment is likely experiencing industry. While the child who consistently struggles in school, receive negative feedback, or fails to meet academic expectation may develop a sense of inferiority. Developing too much of industry leads to the maladaptation tendency of narrow virtuosity. We often see this in children who aren't allowed to be a children, the ones that parents or teachers push into an area of competence without a life. The childlike actors, athletes, and musicians. Example is, consider a child who excel in specific area such as playing the piano. If they push to practice for long hours every day, they will not have their time to play and socialize with the peers. When you develop too much of the inferiority, it will result to inertia. It refers to a lack of motivations. This includes of all of us who suffer from inferiority complex. Example is a child who feels useless may stop trying to excel in school or avoid academic tasks altogether due to a fear of failure. A happier thing to develop the right balance of industry and inferiority is mostly industry with a just touch of inferiority to keep us sensibly humble and lead us to the strength known as competence, in which children develop a belief and their abilities to be a successful. That is our fourth stage, which is the school age. The psychosocial crisis is industry versus inferiority. The maladaptation is the narrow virtuosity. The malignancy is inertia. And the psychosocial strength is competence. Next is the stage 5, which is adolescence. The ego identity versus the role confusion. Adolescence in the beginning of the puberty and ending around 18 to 20 years old. The task during adolescence is to achieve ego identity and avoid role confusion. During adolescence, children explore their independence, they develop their sense of self and personal identity. Knowing who you are, how you fit into the rest of the society. Identity is a sense of self or individuality in the context of life and what lies ahead. For example, I have this friend of mine, her name is Leia. She always been passionate about helping others, that's why she decided to study and become a nurse. Now that Leia became a professional nurse, Leia has a clear career identity as a healthcare professional. A person who receives proper encouragement and reinforcement through personal exploration will emerge from this stage with a strong sense of self and feelings of independence and control. Developing too much of ego identity will lead to maladaptation tendency of fanaticism. Fanaticism, it is where a person is so involved in a particular role in a particular society or subculture that there is no room for tolerance. Like for example, Nurse Leia consistently takes on extra shift to work, sacrificing her personal time and well-being to meet the demands of her job. Her career fanaticism leads to burnout, sleepless nights, and a sense of isolation as her personal life and well-being. A fanatic person who also believes that her way is the only way. On the other hand, those who remain unsure of their beliefs and desire will feel insecure and develop the role confusion about themselves and the future. Role confusion means that the person cannot see clearly who they are or what they want, or it is the absence of the ego identity. For example, if Leia is unsure of what she really wants to be or unsure about her academic interest and career path, she will struggle to make decisions about her future, leading to the role confusion regarding her educational and professional identity. The lack of identity is perhaps more difficult still, and it may lead to the malignancy tendency of repudiation. The repudiate means to reject, where individuals reject or disown important aspect of their identity. Like for example, because Leia is unsure about her academic interest and career path, she has shifted from one to another course without a clear sense of what she wants to do professionally. This continued role confusion and lack of commitment to a specific academic interest. She might reject the concept of entering schools as a whole. If you successfully negotiate this stage and balance ego identity and role confusion, you may develop a sense of fidelity, which Erickson described as an ability to live by the society's standards and expectations. It also involves a sense of loyalty to one's values and commitment to one's chosen identity. Okay, that is our stage 5, which is the adolescence. The psychosocial crisis is ego identity versus role confusion. The maladaptation is the fanaticism, and the malignancy is repudiation. In the psychosocial stage, strength is the fidelity. Next is the stage 6, which is the young adulthood, or the intimacy versus isolation. In this stage of young adulthood, which lasts from about 18 to 30 years old, the task is to achieve some degree of intimacy as opposed to remaining in isolation. Young adults need to form intimate, loving relationship with other people. Intimacy in this context means a willingness to relate to another person on a deep level more than a mutual need. Erickson believed that it was vital that people develop close, committed relationship with other people. Those who are successful at this step will form relationships that are enduring and secure. When individuals become overly focused on forming intimate connection without considering the emotional consequence or the context of their relationship, may develop a sense of promiscuity. It is the tendency to become intimate too freely, too easily, and without any depth to their intimacy. For example of the promiscuity is engaging multiple short-term sexual partnership without pursuing commitment. It is essential to prioritize consent, open communication, and mutual respect with making choices related to an intimate relationship. For those young adults who have not developed a strong sense of identity, may fear being dominated by another person and may experience feelings of loneliness and isolation. They might fear rejection and avoid forming close relationships. Example, people who experience past rejection and relationship and now avoids dating or forming close friendships. That fear of being rejected again keeps a person isolated from potential connection. Excessive isolation can contribute to a sense of exclusion, the tendency to isolate oneself from social circles and events. Like, for example, a person who has gone through a challenging breakup may exhibit a tendency to isolate themselves from love and friendship. In response to the emotional pain, this individual might consciously or unconsciously distance themselves from friends and potential romantic connections as a means of self-protection. Successful resolution or balance of this crisis result in the virtue known as love. In the context of Erickson's theory, love means being able to put aside differences and antagonism through mutuality of devotion. It is also marked by the ability to form a lasting and meaningful relationship with other people. The capacity to love and be loved contribute to the emotional richness of relationship, fostering bonds that withstand challenges and deepen over time. That is our stage 6, which is the young adulthood. The psychosocial crisis is intimacy versus isolation. Maladaptation is the promiscuity. Malignancy is exclusion. And the psychosocial strength is love. Next is stage 7, which is the middle adulthood. The task here is to cultivate the proper balance of generativity and stagnation. In Erickson's psychosocial theory, middle adulthood, generally considered around 40 to 65 years old, is associated with a crisis of generativity versus the stagnation. Individuals in this stage reflect their lives and seek to contribute to the well-being of the future generations. It also refers to having children and raising them. In addition, it refers to the productive and creative efforts in which adults take part that have a positive effect on younger generations. Example is teaching. Persons who actively mentoring younger colleagues that share their knowledge and experiences to help other grow in their career. This commitment to fostering growth in others will bring a sense of purpose and fulfillment. If they feel unproductive or lack a sense of purpose, may experience a sense of stagnation. This crisis involves finding meaning and purpose in one's life beyond personal achievement, often through family, work, or community involvement. Example of being stagnant is when a person becomes solely focused their own career advancement, neglecting family or social responsibilities and showing little interest in mentoring or contributing to the development of others. It is perhaps hard to imagine that we should have any stagnation in our lives, but the maladaptive tendency Erickson calls overextension. Overextension, it illustrates the problem of some people try to be generative, that they no longer allow time for themselves, for rest or and relaxation. Example is having an excessive work commitment. When you are passionate about your work, you overextend yourself by consistently working long hours, taking on new responsibilities, and often at the expense of your own work-life balance and well-being. This overextension can lead to burnout and decreased job satisfaction. More obvious, of course, is the malignant tendency of rejectivity. It is too little generativity and too much of the stagnation. You are no longer participating or contributing to the society. Like, for example, a person who was stagnant in their career, they refuse to adapt to new technologies or explore new approaches. They often reject ideas and suggestions for improvement from a younger colleague. But If you are successful at this stage and cultivate the proper balance and generativity and stagnation, you will have a capacity to develop a sense of care. Care is the affection and concern to others that will serve you through the rest of your life. This person with care will actively support and guide your generation. The care for their development and success reflects the virtue of care. Alright, that is our stage 7, which is the middle adulthood. The psychosocial crisis is generativity versus stagnation. The maladaptation is overextension. And the malignancy is rejectivity. And the psychosocial strength is care. Let us now proceed to the stage 8, which is the integrity versus the despair. The last stage referred to the delicately as late adulthood or maturity, or less delicately as old age. It begins sometime around retirement after the kids have gone, say somewhere around 60 or 65 years old to death. In Erickson's theory, reaching this stage is a good thing, and not reaching it suggests that earlier problems retarded your development. The task here is to develop ego integrity with a minimal amount of despair. Ego integrity means coming to terms with your life and thereby coming to the terms with the end of your life. People who successfully navigate this stage tend to reflect on their life experiences with a sense of accomplishment and wisdom. They have a positive life story, accepting both the success and the failures as valuable parts of their journey. They feel content with their choices and the life they have led. The maladaptive tendency in stage 8 is called presumption. This is what happens when a person presumes ego integrity without actually facing the difficulties of old age. This happens when someone is overly confident in their moral values and believe that their principles are the only correct ones. It can lead to a sense of superiority and a lack of openness to different perspectives. Like for example, in your workplace, an individual with an exaggerated sense of professional integrity may be overly critical of colleagues who have alternative approaches or methods. They might presume that their way of doing is the only valid approach, or hindering collaboration and innovation. On the other hand, those who struggle with this stage may experience a feelings of despair and regret. This person may dwell on missed opportunities, unfulfilled goals, or the negative impact of past decisions. Examples of these are those persons who experience a series of failed relationships, or lack of career success and unresolved conflict with family members might face a despair in late adulthood. This can lead to a sense of hopelessness and dissatisfaction with life. Now, the malignant tendency is called disdain, where individuals become bitter and contemptuous towards life, or themselves or to others. This person becomes very negative and appears to hate life. Like for example, imagine someone who has faced a series of disappointments and failures in their personal and professional life. If they dwell on these failures and become consumed by self-criticism, it can lead to self-disdain. They may start to despise themselves, constantly focusing on their mistakes and shortcomings, which can lead or result in low esteem and depression. Those who balance the crisis will develop the virtue or the psychosocial strength which Erickson calls wisdom. Wisdom, it is often associated with a profound understanding of life, empathy, and the ability to navigate complex situations with a sense of equanimity. Like for example is those who balance the crisis effectively tend to impart valuable life lessons and perspectives to others, demonstrating a wise and a compassionate outlook. Successfully completing this phase means looking back with a few regrets and general feelings of satisfaction. These individuals will attain wisdom even when confronting death. Okay, that is the stage 8, which is the late adulthood. The psychosocial crisis is integrity versus despair. The maladaptation is presumption, and the malignancy is disdain. And the psychosocial strength is wisdom. Okay, why the theory of Erikson is important? It is important because this theory addresses development throughout a person's life, not just during childhood. It also stressed the importance of social relationship in shaping personality and growth at each point in development. Okay. All right. That's the end of my report about the Erik Erikson psychosocial theory of development. Again, I'm Anami Piancillo, and thank you for listening.
Marcia's identity statuses. He identified 4 identity statuses from deep interview with adolescents. Marcia's concluded that it's important to distinguish between exploration and commitment. Exploration involves examining meaningful alternative identities, while commitment means showing a personal investment in an identity and staying with whatever that identity implies. The 4 identity statuses. 1. Foreclosure. Foreclosure have never experienced an identity crisis. It indicates a kind of pseudo-identity that generally is too fixed and rigid to serve as a foundation for meeting life's future crises. Number 2. Identity diffusion. Adolescents experiencing identity diffusion have found neither an occupational directions nor ideological commitment of any kind, and they have made little progress towards this end. Number 3. Moratorium. Adolescents in a state of moratorium are those who have begun to experience with occupation an ideological choice but have not yet made definitive commitment to either. Expanding on Erickson's theory, Marcia's in 1966 described identify formations during adolescence as involving both exploration and commitment with respect to ideologies and occupations. Identity development begins when individuals identify with role models who provide them with options to explore for whom they can become. As identify development progresses, adolescents are expected to make a choices and commit to options with confines of their social context. In some cases, options are not provided or are limited, and the individual will fail to commit or will commit without the opportunity to explore various Number 4. Identity achievement. It signifies a state of identity consolation, which adolescents have made their own conscious, clear-cut decisions about occupation and ideology. Identity development. One of the first signs of early adolescence is the appearance of reflectivity. Adolescents begin to look more closely at themselves and to define themselves differently. Ethnic development. A person's identity is an enduring aspect of the self that includes a sense of membership in an ethnic group, along with the attitudes and the feeling related to the membership.
Development of gender and sexual identity. Gender identity is the idea of what does it mean to be a girl and a boy, and how notion of gender identity apply to them. Develops complicity during the middle childhood year, and at this development moment, children become aware of gender stereotype having to do and how girl and boy are supposed to think or act. Correspondingly, children start to identify certain activities or ability as characterized as masculine and feminine. Gender identity is also a sense of oneself as a male or a female. Sexual identity. Sexual identity may also refer to sexual orientation identity. Sexual identity and sexual behavior are closely related to sexual and sexual orientation, but they are distinguished, with identity referring to an individual conception and themselves. Behavior referring to romantic and sexual attraction toward a person of opposite sex or gender, the same sex or gender, the both sex, or more than one, or no one.
Good day everyone, my name is Rohani T. Makabot, and now I'm gonna tackle about Jean Piaget theory in socio-emotional development. In stage 1, we have heteronomous morality, age 4 to 7 years old. Sa stage na to, ayon kay Jean Piaget, ang mga bata ay naniniwala na ang mga rules or ang patakaran ay hindi nagbabago at kailangan natin itong sundan. Mas nakafocus sila sa action kesa sa intention. So let's say for example, there's a group of children na naglalaro. And then, yung isang bata is nahihirapang huminga. And then, nakita yun ng isang bata, kaya kumuha siya ng tubig para sana ipainom dun sa batang nahihirapang huminga. And then, accidentally, biglang nabasag yung basong may lamang tubig. And then, kapag tinanong mo yung ibang bata doon na naglalaro, ang isasagot lang nila is nakabasag ng baso yung isang bata. Kasi, nakafocus lang sila dun sa action kesa sa dun sa intention. Which is, ang intention ng isang bata is tulungan yung batang nahihirapang huminga. In this stage, ang mga rules galing sa ibang tao ay kailangan sundin at para sa kanila kapag ito ay nalabag mo, merong punishment or kaparusahan agad ang kapalit nito. So usually kasi yung ibang parents kapag yung anak nila is nakagawa ng kasalanan or nalabag yung rules na gusto nila, agad-agad na ginagawa nila is pinapunish yung anak nila or pinapalo nila. Kaya yung ibang bata nasa isipan na nila na kapag nakagawa ko ng kasalanan, ganito yung mangyayari. Papaluin ako kasi yun yung nararanasan nila galing sa parents nila. So nasa mindset na nila na kapag nakagawa ka ng kasalanan, punishment agad ang kapalit nito. Aside sa punishment, natuklasan din ni Jean Piaget na sa stage na to meron ding characteristic view ang mga bata. Firstly, para sa kanila, ang function or ang purpose ng punishment is para mag-suffer sila sa kasalanan na kanilang nagawa. Piaget also believed in immanent justice. Immanent justice is that punishment should automatically follow a bad behavior. Kasi kung mapapansin natin, meron talagang mga bata na mas pipiliin magsinungaling kaysa magsabi ng totoo. Kasi para sa kanila, kapag umamin sila sa mga kasalanan na kanilang ginawa, punishment agad ang mangyayari. So, mas pipiliin nila magsinungaling na lang kaysa sabihin yung totoo kasi mas takot sila dun sa punishment na maaari nila makuha galing sa kanilang mga parents. Sa stage 2 naman, we have autonomous morality, age 7 to 11 years old. In this stage naman, ayon kay Jean Piaget, naniniwala ang mga bata na ang patakaran or rules galing sa ibang tao ay pwede pang mabago. Nagsisimula na sila makaintindi or they understand na walang lubos na tama or mali. At ang morality ay nakadepende sa intention, hindi sa consequences. So let's say for example, there's a girl na umuwi galing school. So pagdating niya sa bahay, ang sinabi niya sa parents niya is binigyan siya ng mataas na grade ng kanyang teacher. Which is hindi naman talaga siya binigyan ng mataas na grade. So dahil sinabi niya yon, binigyan siya ng kanyang parents ng reward. So yun ang intention ng bata, which is maging masaya ang parents niya at para mabigyan siya ng reward. Hindi niya iniisip yung maaring consequences na mangyari kapag nalaman ng parents niya na hindi naman talaga mataas yung kanyang nakuhang grade. So mas nakatuon siya dun sa intention kesa dun sa consequences na pwedeng mangyari. Piaget also believed that around 7 to 11 years old, dito na nadidevelop or naiintindihan na nila kung ano ba yung point bakit may mga rules na kailangang sundin. People make rules and people can change them. So, for example, sinasabi sa batas na bawal magnakaw kasi ito ay masama sa paningin ng Diyos at ito ay masama sa ating lahat. So, susundin nila yung batas na yun kasi alam nila na kapag sinunod nila yun, mapapabuti sila. Malalayo sila sa mga consequences na pwede mangyari. So, ito ay matatawag nating autonomous morality.
How about today, I am a mother who rises to go. I am the last reporter of So today, I am going to discuss the Lawrence Colbert. Lawrence Colbert. Siya ay pinanganak noong 1927 at lumaki siya sa Navy. Sa edad na 59 years old, siya ay pinangulian ng buhay noong January 17, 1957. Sa siyang Professor of Education and Social Psychology sa Ward noong 1960. Bukod sa pagiging professor, nakagawa din siya ng mga libro na kung saan ginagamit at nakilala sa mundo. Ang mga libro ito ay umiikot naman sa moral development. So let's proceed to the moral development of Lawrence Colbert. Colbert's theory of moral development is a theory that focuses on how children develop morality and moralism. Kapag sinabi natin morality, ito yung pagkakaroon na mabuting pag-uugali ng isang bata. Lawrence Colbert, he also studied in development of moralism. Kapag sinabi naman natin moralism, dito mapapasok kung paano tayo mag-isip o kung paano mag-isip yung isang bata sa tama o mali. Kapag sinabi moralism, dito nakapasok kung ano ang susundin ng isang bata, ang tama ba o ang mali. So, stages of moral development, Colbert's theory is broken down to 3 primary levels. At each level of moral development, there are 2 stages. Ang moral development ay may 3 level, the pre-conventional, conventional, and the post-conventional. At each level, there are 2 stages. Similar to how Piaget that not only to reach the highest level of cognitive development. Katulad ng paniniwala ni Jean Piaget na wala daw gaanong nakakarating sa formal operational stage. Sa paniniwala ni Colbert, gayon din, hindi daw lahat ng tao nare-reach yung the post-conventional level. Narito ang unang level, ito ay tinatawag na pre-conventional morality. Pre-conventional morality is the earliest period of moral development. This lasts until around the age of 1. Ang pre-conventional morality, ito yung level na kung saan dito naka-order yung bata hanggang siya ay 99 years old. Ang pre-conventional morality, ito yung stage na kung saan di pa talaga naiintindihan ng mga bata kung ano ba yung batas, ano ba yung law na ginagawa ng government, ano ba yung sinasabi ni teacher na batas sa classroom, di pa nila alam yun. Hindi sila sumusunod lang sila dahil sa mga sinasabi ng mga bata o ako na nakakatanda na nasa paligid nila. Katulad nga ng binanggit ko kanina, ang bawat level ay binubuo ng 2 stages. Ang unang stages na under ng pre-conventional morality ay ito ay tinatawag na obedience and punishment. The obedience and punishment are especially common in young children, but adults are also capable of experiencing this type of wisdom. Yung pagsunod at parusa ang nagiging keyword dito sa pre-conventional morality. Pwede itong mangyari sa mga bata gayon din sa mga nakakatanda. According to Colbert, people of these days see rules as fixed and absolute. Obeying their rules is important because it is way or to avoid punishment. Katulad nga ng binanggit ko kanina, yung mga bata na under ng pre-conventional morality, hindi pa talaga nila alam kung bakit mo talaga kailangan sundin ang mga batas na yun. Bakit ba kailangan nilang sundin yung mga sinasabi na government, kung bakit na ba nilang kailangan sundin yung sinasabi ng teacher nila. Kaya lamang nila yung ginagawa kasi takot silang maparusahan, takot silang mapalo ng sigawan at mapagalitan. So kabuuan dito sa pre-conventional stage, stage 1, ay sumusunod yung mga bata, hindi dahil alam nila nakakapunta sa kanila yung sabi ng agaw o mas nakakatanda sa kanila. Kundi natatakot lang silang maparusahan. Stage 2, ang pangalawang stage na under din sa pre-conventional morality ay tinatawag na individualism and exchange. At the individualism and exchange, states of moral development, children account for individual points of view and just action based on focuses on the acceptance of authority and conforming to the norms of the group. There are two stages of this level of morality. Dito nagsisimulang naiintindihan ng mga bata kung para saan ang batas at sa tulong ng batas din ma-accept sila dito sa lipunan. Magtatanggap sila, hindi sila magiging iba sa mga taong nasa paligid nila. Katulad ng unang level, ang level 2 or the conventional level ay binubuo din ng 2 stages. Ang stage 3 o ang unang level ng conventional morality of developing of good interpersonal relationships, often referred to as the good boy or good boy and good girl orientation. This stage of the interpersonal relationship of moral development, this focus can living up to social expectation. Ang form dito sa stage 3 is good boy and good girl. Dito mangyayari na yung pagkakaayos na sumusunod sila kasi gusto nilang makita sila as a perfect or as a good boy and good girl. There is an emphasis on comforting you, nice and consideration of how influence relationships. Good boy and nice orientation is determined by social approval, and the individual wants to maintain or win life affection and approval of other being a good person. So next is stage 4, maintaining social order. This stage is focused on ensuring that social order is maintained. At this stage of moral development, people begin to consider society as a whole when making judgments. Ang mga taong under ng maintaining social order o yung stage number 4, ito yung mga taong na kapag nag-decide sila, kino-consider na nila ano yung magiging epekto or ano yung magiging epekto ng decision nila sa mga taong nasa paligid nila. Kumbaga, hindi na lang sila nag-decide para sa sarili nila. The focus is on maintaining law, order by following the rules, doing one's duty and respecting authority. Dito naka-under yung pag-imitate ng batas, pagsunod sa mga rules, paggawa ng mga responsibilities, at pag-respeto sa governments sa mga nakapatas. So, let's proceed to the last stages of moral development. The last is level 3, post-conventional morality. Ang last level ng morality, moral development, ay tinatawag na post-conventional morality. Nais kong tandaan na katulad nga ng binanggit ko kanina na parang kahit over, hindi lahat ng tao naaabot itong level 3 or post-conventional morality. At this level of moral development, people develop an understanding abstract principles of morality. Just like the other stages, these levels is composed of 2 different stages. Ang unang stage na under ng post-conventional morality ay tinatawag na social contact and individual rights. These ideas of social contract and individual right now people in the next stage to begin to account for the differing values, opinions, and beliefs of other people. Sa stage na ito, nag-decide yung isang tao kung susunod ba siya sa batas o hindi. Depende sa napagkasuhan na nakakarami. Gayon din sa karapatan ng bawat individual. Rules of law are important for maintaining society. But member of the society should agree upon these standards. Ang pangalawang stage na under ng post-conventional morality, ito yung tinatawag na universal principles of all words. This is the final level of our reasoning. It is based on universal ethical principles and abstract reasoning. At this stage, people follow the internalized principles of justice, even if they conflict with those and sa stage na ito, mayroon ng sariling desisyon ang bawat individual which is naka-base yun sa universal principle if sa pangkahalatan kung tama naman yung ginagawa niya at yun pa rin ang gagawin niya kahit labag na yun sa mga batas. Converts believe that only a relatively small percentage of people ever reach the most popular stages, around 10 to 15%. One analysis found that while stages 1 to 4 could be seen as universal population throughout the world. The 5th and 6th are stages were extremely well in all populations. Katulad nga ng binanggit ko sa mga unang bahagi, para kay Colberts, hindi lahat ng tao nare-reach yung last level and last stages kadalasan level